The small town had only one main road, and everyone knew everyone else. The land around it was wide and quiet, with open fields, slow-moving cattle, and fences that stretched far into the distance. Life there was simple, but it was not easy. Days began before sunrise and ended long after dark. For years, the cowboy had lived this life alone. He was known as a serious man. He worked hard, spoke little, and kept his promises. People respected him, but they did not know him well. After his parents passed away, the ranch became his full responsibility. There was always something to fix, feed, or protect. Seasons came and went, and while others built families, his house stayed quiet. At night, the sound of the wind filled the rooms where voices should have been. Loneliness did not arrive suddenly. It grew slowly, like dry grass spreading across the land. At first, he ignored it. He told himself he was too busy, that this life was enough. But as years passed, he began to feel the weight of silence. There was no one to share meals with, no one to talk to after a long day. Even small things, like hearing another person breathe in the room, became something he missed deeply. The idea of marriage did not come from romance. It came from need. He needed help on the ranch, yes. But more than that, he needed companionship, someone to share the work, the worries, and the quiet evenings. In the town, there were few options. Most families had known each other for generations. New people rarely stayed long. That was when he heard about the service. At first, he laughed it off. The idea of a mail-order bride felt strange and uncomfortable. He was not a man who liked shortcuts. But the thought stayed in his mind. Late at night, when the house felt too big and too empty, he found himself thinking about it again. It was not about buying a person or controlling someone. He hoped it would be a chance for two lonely people to help each other build a life. After weeks of thinking, he finally contacted the service. The letters were formal and careful. He explained who he was, the kind of life he lived, and what he could offer. He did not promise luxury. He promised honesty, safety, and respect. When a reply came, he read it slowly, more than once. The woman's words were polite but distant. She did not say much about herself, only that she was willing to work hard and start fresh. They exchanged a few more letters. There were no deep emotions in them, only facts and plans. A date was set. He prepared the house as best as he could. He fixed broken steps, cleaned rooms that had not been used in years, and bought simple things he thought she might need. Each task made the situation feel more real. And with that came nervousness. The day she arrived, the town gathered near the station. It was not unusual for people to watch newcomers. But this time, curiosity was stronger. The cowboy stood slightly apart, his hat low over his eyes. He felt uncomfortable with the attention, but there was no way to avoid it. His hands were stiff, and his thoughts moved too fast. When the train stopped, people stepped off one by one. Then she appeared. She was taller than anyone expected. Taller than most men there. Her shoulders were broad, and her posture was stiff, as if she was trying to take up less space than her body allowed. Her clothes were plain, worn from travel, and she held her bag tightly. Her eyes moved quickly, scanning faces, searching for something familiar in a place that was not. Whispers spread through the crowd. Some people stared openly. Others tried to hide their surprise. The cowboy felt his chest tighten. This was not what he imagined. He did not know why. But he had expected someone smaller. Someone who would fit easily into his quiet life. For a moment, he stood frozen. Then their eyes met. There was fear in her expression. Not anger or pride, but fear. It was the look of someone who had been judged before, and was expecting it to happen again. That look stopped his thoughts. He realized that whatever surprise he felt, she felt it too, multiplied by uncertainty and risk. He stepped forward and introduced himself. His voice was calm, though his heart was racing. She nodded and said her name softly. Her accent marked her as an outsider, and that alone made her more vulnerable. The crowd slowly lost interest, but a few eyes followed them as they walked away together. The ride to the ranch was quiet. The wagon moved slowly over the dirt road. He did not know what to say, and neither did she. Silence filled the space, but it was not comfortable. It carried questions, worries, and unspoken fears. She kept her hands in her lap, her shoulders tense. He tried to explain the land, the work, and what daily life would be like. His words were simple and direct. He did not want to confuse her or make false promises. She listened carefully, nodding from time to time, but she did not speak much. When she did, her voice shook slightly. As the ranch came into view, her grip on her bag tightened. This was the place where her future would be decided. She had crossed great distance to be there, leaving behind everything she knew. There was no turning back easily. Inside the house, he showed her the rooms. Everything was clean but plain. The walls held few decorations. The furniture was strong and practical. When he showed her the room that would be hers, she stood quietly in the doorway. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, unexpectedly, her eyes filled with tears. She turned toward him, clearly struggling to find the right words. Her breathing became uneven. She apologized, then stopped, unsure what she was apologizing for. The pressure she had been holding inside finally broke. She spoke slowly, carefully, as if each word carried weight. She explained that she had been judged her whole life because of her size. People assumed things about her that were not true. They saw her body before they saw her heart. She was tired of being seen as a problem or a mistake. Her voice cracked as she spoke about fear, fear of being unwanted, fear of being sent away, fear of being alone again. Then she said the words that would stay with him forever. They were not said with shame, but with desperation. They were a plea, not a demand. She was asking to be seen for who she truly was, not what others assumed. The cowboy did not interrupt. He did not rush to answer. He stood there, listening. Every word settled deep inside him. In that moment, the situation changed. This was no longer about a service or an arrangement. This was about two people standing at the edge of something uncertain, both afraid, in different ways. He realized that freezing had been easy. Making a choice would be harder. And as he looked at her, standing tall yet broken, he understood that what happened next would define both of their lives. He took a slow breath, preparing to respond not as a man surprised by expectations, but as a man ready to act with integrity. The room felt very quiet after she finished speaking. The air seemed heavy, as if her words were still floating between them. The cowboy did not move right away. He had lived with silence for many years, but this silence was different. It was full of meaning. He could see that she was waiting for his reaction. Her body was still, but her eyes showed worry. She was ready for rejection, ready to hear that she did not belong there. That fear was clear, and it touched something deep inside him. He finally spoke, slowly and carefully. He told her she did not need to apologize. He said she was welcome in his home and on his land. He did not promise perfection, but he promised respect. His voice was steady, not loud, not soft, just honest. She listened closely, as if afraid to miss a single word. She let out a small breath she did not realize she had been holding. Her shoulders relaxed slightly, though the tension did not disappear completely. Trust, for her, did not come easily. Life had taught her to stay alert, to protect herself from disappointment. They agreed to take things one day at a time. There were no big talks about the future. No strong emotions shared. Just a simple understanding that for now, they would try. That alone felt like a small victory for both of them. The first few days were awkward. They moved around each other carefully, like strangers sharing the same space. Mornings began early. The cowboy followed his usual routine, and she watched quietly at first, learning the rhythm of the ranch. He showed her simple tasks, never pushing too hard, never talking down to her. She proved quickly that she was strong and capable. Physical work did not scare her. In fact, she seemed more comfortable working with her hands than sitting still. Fixing fences, carrying supplies, helping with animals. She did it all without complaint. The cowboy noticed this and respected it, but he did not praise her loudly. He knew that too much attention could feel just as uncomfortable as too little. In the evenings, they ate together at the small table. Meals were quiet at first. He asked simple questions about her journey, her preferences, and what she needed. She answered honestly but briefly. Talking about her past was difficult. There were parts of her life she was not ready to share yet. Outside the ranch, the town noticed her presence quickly. People stared when she visited the store or passed by on the road. Some looks were curious, others less kind. She felt them all. Each glance reminded her of old experiences she wanted to forget. The cowboy noticed too. He did not say much, but he stayed close whenever they were in town. Not in a controlling way, but in a quiet, supportive one. When someone spoke to her, he made sure they spoke with respect. When someone looked too long, he met their eyes calmly until they looked away. One afternoon, while they were working near the barn, she finally spoke more openly. She told him about growing up in places where she never quite fit in. People always expected her to be something she was not. Strong meant rough. Tall meant unfriendly. Quiet meant distant. No one had asked her who she really was. She said the service felt like her last chance, not for romance, but for stability. She wanted a place where she could work, rest, and feel useful without being judged. Saying this out loud made her feel exposed, but also lighter. He listened the same way he had before without interrupting. When she finished, he nodded and said he understood more than she might think. He told her about his own loneliness, about nights when the house felt too empty. He admitted that asking for help did not come naturally to him. That was the most personal thing he had shared with anyone in a long time. That conversation changed something between them. The tension eased, just a little. They were still careful, still unsure. But there was a growing sense of shared ground. They were two people who knew what it meant to be alone. As days turned into weeks, routines formed. She took pride in learning the land. She began to smile more, though she still guarded herself. The cowboy noticed the small changes, the way she hummed quietly while working, the way she looked more confident walking through the house. Still, doubts did not disappear. Late at night, she sometimes sat awake, wondering if this calm would last. She feared that one mistake could undo everything. That fear showed itself in small ways: hesitation before speaking, quick apologies, careful movements. One evening, after a long day, she accidentally broke a tool. The sound echoed in the barn, sharp and sudden. She froze, her face going pale. Old memories rushed back, memories of being blamed and shamed. Before she could speak, the cowboy picked up the broken piece and examined it. He said it could be fixed, and that tools were meant to be used, not feared. His calm reaction surprised her. She nodded, trying to hide her emotions, but he saw them anyway. Later that night, she thanked him quietly. He shrugged it off, but inside, he understood how important that moment had been. It was not about the tool, it was about safety. The town slowly began to adjust to her presence. Some people softened, others kept their distance. She learned which places felt welcoming and which did not. Through it all, the cowboy remained steady. He did not force her to fit in, and he did not hide her away. He let her choose her pace. One afternoon, she stood by the fence, looking out over the land. She told him that for the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe. Those words stayed with him. He realized that this arrangement had already become something more meaningful than he expected. But life has a way of testing calm moments. A small misunderstanding in town led to harsh words spoken behind her back. She heard about it and felt the old fear rise again. That night, she withdrew, quiet and distant. The cowboy noticed and did not ignore it. He spoke to her gently, asking what was wrong. At first, she resisted, but then she shared what she had heard. Her voice was tight with emotion. She said she did not want to be a burden or a source of trouble. That was when he made his position clear. He told her that people would talk no matter what, but their words did not define her place there. He said she had earned her space through honesty and hard work. He meant every word. For her, hearing that changed something deep inside. It did not erase the pain, but it gave her strength. She realized that she was not alone in facing judgment anymore. As night settled over the ranch, both of them understood that they were still at the beginning. Trust was growing, slowly and carefully. The foundation was being built, not with big promises, but with daily choices. And somewhere between shared work, quiet meals, and honest words, a fragile bond was forming, one that neither of them had planned, but both were beginning to value deeply. The change between them did not happen suddenly. It grew slowly, like a plant that needs time, water, and patience. After the difficult days in town, both of them became more careful with each other's feelings. They did not talk about big emotions, but their actions began to speak clearly. The cowboy started including her more in decisions about the ranch. He asked her opinion about repairs, animals, and daily plans. At first, she hesitated. She was used to being told what to do, not asked what she thought. But when she realized he truly wanted her input, she began to speak more freely. Her ideas were practical and thoughtful. He respected that, and she noticed she also began to take small steps of her own. She added simple touches to the house, not changing it completely, but making it warmer. A clean cloth on the table, flowers from the field in a jar, rearranging small items to make space feel more welcoming. She did these things quietly, unsure how he would react. When he noticed, he did not comment much, but he smiled more. The house felt less empty. The silence was no longer heavy. It felt shared. Work on the ranch continued as usual, but now it felt different. They worked side by side more often. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. The quiet between them became comfortable. There was no pressure to fill it. That comfort was new to both of them. One afternoon, a problem with the animals required quick action. A fence had broken during the night, and some cattle had wandered far. The cowboy moved fast, focused, and serious. She followed without being asked, understanding the urgency. The work was tiring. Dust filled the air, and the sun was strong. At one point, she slipped on uneven ground. The cowboy reached out quickly and helped her up. It was a small moment, but it stayed with both of them. He did not panic or scold her. He simply made sure she was fine and continued working. That simple care meant more to her than words. After the animals were safe, they rested near the fence. She laughed softly, surprised at herself. It had been a long time since she had laughed without forcing it. He noticed, and felt something warm inside. He realized he liked hearing that sound. As days passed, she began to share more of herself. She talked about her childhood, the places she had lived, and the times she felt invisible. She explained how being different had shaped her, sometimes making her strong, sometimes making her tired. She did not blame anyone. She spoke calmly, honestly. The cowboy shared more too. He talked about his parents, about learning responsibility at a young age. He spoke about losing people he loved and choosing work over emotions because it felt safer. Talking was not easy for him, but with her, it felt less risky. One evening, a storm rolled in unexpectedly. Rain hit the roof hard, and thunder echoed across the land. The animals were safe, but the noise made the house feel smaller. She sat quietly, clearly unsettled. Storms reminded her of uncertain times, of places where she did not feel protected. The cowboy noticed and brought extra blankets. He sat nearby, not too close, but close enough to feel steady. They did not talk much. The storm passed slowly, and with it, some of her fear. She realized that she felt safe there. That realization surprised her deeply. The next day, they went into town together. This time felt different. She walked with more confidence. People still looked, but she did not shrink under their eyes as much. The cowboy greeted others calmly, making it clear through his behavior that she belonged with him. A shop owner spoke to her directly, asking about her work on the ranch. It was a small interaction, but it mattered. She answered politely, her voice steady. When they left, she felt proud of herself. Not everything was easy. There were moments of misunderstanding. Once, she overheard someone saying the cowboy had only agreed to the arrangement out of need, not care. Those words hurt her deeply. She grew quiet again, distant and unsure. Instead of pulling away completely, she decided to speak up. That alone showed how much she had changed. She told him what she heard and how it made her feel. Her voice shook, but she did not hide her emotions. The cowboy listened carefully. Then he told her the truth. He said yes. He had started the arrangement out of need, but staying was a choice. Every day was a choice. He chose to respect her, to stand with her, and to continue building something real. He did not use dramatic words, but his honesty was clear. That conversation marked an important moment. She realized she no longer felt like she had to earn her place every single day. She was already part of the life there. Time moved forward. Seasons began to change. The land looked different, and so did they. She carried herself with more confidence. He smiled more often. People in town began to accept her presence as normal. She was no longer a topic of quiet talk, but a familiar face. One evening, as they sat outside watching the sun set, she thanked him. Not just for the home or the work, but for seeing her as a whole person. Her words were simple, but filled with meaning. He nodded and said she had given him something too. She had brought life back into a place that had felt empty for too long. Saying that out loud felt strange, but also right. They both understood that what they had was not perfect. There were still fears, still questions about the future. But there was also trust now. And trust was stronger than fear. The cowboy realized that his earlier frozen moment, when she first arrived, had been the point where everything could have gone wrong or right. Choosing respect instead of judgment had changed the path of both their lives. As night fell, they sat quietly, side by side. No promises were made, none were needed. What mattered was that they were no longer alone, and they were moving forward together, slowly, carefully, and honestly. The final part of their journey did not begin with a big moment. It began quietly, the way most real changes do. Life on the ranch continued, steady and demanding. But something inside both of them had shifted. They were no longer just two people sharing space out of need. They were becoming partners in the truest sense. Even if they did not yet use that word, the woman woke each morning with a clearer mind. The fear that once followed her everywhere had not disappeared, but it no longer controlled her. She moved with purpose now. She knew her place on the land, not because someone gave it to her, but because she had earned it through effort, care, and honesty. The cowboy noticed this change more than anyone. He saw how she handled problems calmly, how she helped without being asked, how she stood tall even when faced with doubt. Her strength was no longer just physical. It showed in her confidence, in the way she spoke, and in the way she trusted herself. With time, the town's attitude continued to change. Familiarity replaced curiosity. People began greeting her by name. Some even asked for her help or advice. It was not sudden, and it was not perfect, but it was real progress. One afternoon, an unexpected challenge arrived. A neighboring ranch faced serious trouble, and help was needed. The cowboy was asked to assist, but it would take him away for several days. In the past, leaving the ranch would have worried him deeply. Now, he trusted her completely. Before he left, they talked openly. He explained what needed to be done and asked if she was comfortable handling things alone for a while. She listened carefully and said yes, without hesitation. Her confidence surprised him, but it also made him proud. During his absence, she managed the ranch with care and determination. There were difficult moments, but she handled them calmly. When problems arose, she solved them step by step. Each challenge she faced strengthened her belief in herself. When the cowboy returned, tired but relieved, he found everything in order. The animals were safe, the land well cared for, and the house felt warmer than ever. In that moment, he understood something clearly. She was not just helping him keep the ranch running. She was helping him build a life. That evening, they sat together and talked longer than usual. Not about work, but about hopes. She spoke about wanting stability, a place where she could continue growing without fear. He spoke about wanting peace, and a future that did not feel empty. There was no sudden declaration, no dramatic gesture. Instead, there was understanding. They both realized that what they shared was built on trust, not illusion. That made it strong. As weeks passed, they faced one final test. A decision had to be made about their arrangement. The service that had brought them together required confirmation of their future plans. It was time to choose whether they would continue as partners or walk separate paths. The woman felt nervous, but she also felt ready. For the first time in her life, she was not afraid to speak honestly. She told the cowboy that she wanted to stay not out of fear, but out of choice. She said she believed in what they had built together. The cowboy listened quietly. Then he shared his own truth. He said he could not imagine the ranch, or his life, without her. He admitted that she had changed him, softened him, and reminded him that companionship was not weakness. Their decision was simple, but meaningful. They chose to move forward, together. Life did not suddenly become easy. There were still long days, hard work, and moments of doubt. But now, those moments were shared. When one felt tired, the other offered support. When one felt unsure, the other listened. Over time, the ranch became more than land and buildings. It became a home in the truest sense. Laughter became more common. Conversations grew deeper. Silence, when it came, felt peaceful rather than lonely. The woman no longer felt like she needed to hide who she was. She had learned that her size, her strength, and her past did not define her limits. What defined her was her courage to keep going. The cowboy learned something just as important. He learned that opening his life to another person did not mean losing control. It meant gaining connection. Looking back, both of them understood how close they had come to missing this chance. That frozen moment at the beginning, filled with uncertainty, could have ended everything before it began, but choosing patience and respect had changed the path of their lives. Their story was not perfect or dramatic. It was real. It was built on small choices made every day. And in that simplicity, they found something rare: belonging. As the seasons continued to change, they stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next. Not as strangers, but as partners who had learned to see each other clearly. And that was enough.